JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F124. But today, we are trying something a little bit different within the F124 game. That is the F2 cars. Because a lot of you guys have been telling me you really need to try this. It actually feels better than the official F1 cars in this game. And I did try the F2 cars, I think, on last year's game or the year before. The F2 cars have always actually felt pretty good, and I know Carl, the guy racing my league, is a big fan of these cars. He is very fast. He's had many world records in this car, so I thought, you know what, let's give it a try. Kind of go back to old school kind of videos where I just see how fast I can go within 30 minutes, closer as I can to the world record. And as always, we're going to start with the sock setup. And if you are trying to get faster at a time trial or get closer to a world record, this is what I would typically advise. I would actually start off with just a default setup, get yourself used to the track, used to the car, just how it feels. And you can already see a bit of a smile on my face because the force feedback I got straight away from this F2 car was absolutely incredible. It felt so good already, and just so much more detailing on the force feedback. Just the car felt quite heavy. It's a lot more understeer obviously than the F1 car because it doesn't have as much downforce. But I feel like you really have to hustle this car, and you can just feel the weight of it so much more. So already on this half a lap here, felt very satisfying to drive. But as I was saying, if you're trying to just get better at the time trial or just become just faster, on your raw pace over one lap, I would always start off with the default. Just get yourself used to the track, used to the car. And I know it sounds a bit strange, but I do the same thing when I practice online for qualifying for a league race. I normally do a few laps in the mediums first because I know there's going to be a big delta. So when I put on the setup here, the time trial, I know if I can get a reasonable time with a default setup, I'm usually going to go quite a bit faster with a setup. So normally like a second to like a second and a half. That's typically what it was in the official F1 car. So if I can get within like a second and a half of the world record here where I want to be, then that gives me just a lot of confidence. And I always do this in 30 to 40 minute stints. I don't like to do more than that because I think anything more than that, you tend to overdrive. You don't really develop your muscle memory. Kind of get stuck in the same driving habits, driving pattern, and people tend to overdrive. So I would recommend probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes max at a time. Take a little break, come back later, maybe even come back the next day. I know a lot of people in time trial, they spend hours and hours, and eventually if you throw enough things at the wall, it will stick, but I don't think it actually promotes a better muscle memory to becoming a more complete, consistent driver overall. But as you can see here, did it like a 19.7 pretty quickly with the stock setup, so I was actually very happy with that. And you can see we're about 2.5 tenths up here, still with the stock setup, and yeah, really happy with this. So coming across the line, this is going to be a 19.4, and that is pretty much bang on the way, a second and a half away from the world record, which is a 17.9 on the PlayStation anyway. I always like to compare myself on the console you're playing. PC typically has always been a little bit faster for various reasons. So you can see Carl's done an 18.1. I know he has driven this car a lot, so he's very experienced in this. So I know for my first attempt here at Zandvoort, which I thought would be a really good track to do this on, have to really hustle the car, got a lot of tight corners, heavy braking zones. So I thought this would be a good one to try on. You can see we're trying this out now, and let's see how much faster. But yeah, I might do quite a few more attempts in this car, round up the tracks. And this first one, I'm not expecting to be blowing the world record away in the first one, but I think the more experience I have with this car, going to other tracks like Silverstone, Hungary, tracks like that, I think hopefully we can start to pick up some along the way. But initially, when I put on the setup, you can see we're not really gaining that much time, which was a little bit concerning. And that's the thing again, I think when you are trying a setup or someone else's setup as a baseline, definitely give it 3 to 5 laps. Just don't give up after one lap and think, oh, that's it doesn't suit my driving style. Try and perfect the fundamentals. This is what I go through in my coaching and one-to-one coaching, which you can now book a session with me in 2025. at www.coachlimits.com on all platforms. But what I really like to teach there is to really have awareness of your inputs, understand what is actually rewarded in the game and what is not rewarded in terms of muscle memory. And once you start to understand that and become aware that of your driving inputs, all of a sudden the setups will come to you. A setup that might have felt very difficult to control initially or very oversteery, when you start to understand the fundamentals and actually start to apply them, all of a sudden things become much easier. And I think that's how it should feel when you get closer to your potential. Things shouldn't be feeling more difficult out of control. You should be feeling more in control. But you can see, got down to an 18.9 pretty quickly, so that was pretty good. The next lap from here, just pushing the limits, just adding that more momentum per corner, braking slightly later, turning slightly earlier and less, and really just starting to feel how this car works. And you can see just every other lap starting to improve by 10. Now we're down to an 18.6, so half a second away from Carl, which is already pretty good, I think, because he's very, very good in this car. Probably is potentially the best PlayStation driver in these cars. He's had many world records when I've seen on his channel. So yeah, you can see here, this is going to take you through a full lap here now. And the first sector, this is why I'm losing a lot of time to him. I struggle in this first sector in the official F1 car as well. Even on the official F1 car in general, over a lap, I actually struggle around here. So I thought this would actually be a good track just to kind of challenge myself, test myself a little bit more. Going through this sector, you can see very understeery, so much less downforce than the F1 car. But in a way, that makes it actually more enjoyable to drive. It feels like more of a driver's car where you just have to actually hustle it. You can feel the weight. And I think the thing that impressed me the most driving this was just the force feedback. You can see as we're going over the curbs there. Obviously, it depends on your settings, but for me, I just felt the detailing of the force feedback was just a lot more than what it was in the official F1 cars. You can see doing this up here around about 2 tenths up as we cross the line, and that's going to bring us down to about an 18.4, which was pretty decent. But it's usually at this point, after like 12-13 laps, this is when I kind of get up to my limit for this period that I'm attempting this. And again, like I said, normally I would have to step away for an hour or two, come back a bit later, come back next day, and then almost immediately I would improve. So for me, I kind of get up to my muscle memory for the day pretty quickly. And this is the point where it doesn't really benefit me to keep on going. Otherwise, I'll just start over driving the car. But for the purposes of these videos, I did try it for about 30 minutes or so. You can see making a couple of set adjustments. Feel confident in me applying the fundamentals. So I feel, again, I wouldn't be changing so much of the setup until you feel you're getting the best out of yourself on the day that you're actually trying this. So that's my advice for that. But you can see, come across line now, this is actually the fastest lap I ended up doing. So going into this turn one, really hugging this apex, really getting on the traction. Can be very aggressive on the traction, but it can spit you out. Going through here, just kind of a little lift, going through it here, and middle of the track, keep it fairly tight on this exit. And you can see again, we are still quite a way down from what Carl does in that first sector. So he's very, very good in this first sector. Going through here, I think you can do it flat out. So I do a little lift, but I actually believe you probably could do it flat out if you get it perfect. Going through this corner, really having to turn early, really commit on the throttle, use all the track on the left-hand side, we're down to nature, missing the apex quite a bit of the inside, so that's actually a lot of time we just lost there. But going through this corner, hugging this apex, use all the track in the exit, doing this pretty nicely, but that right-hander, who definitely lost well over a tenth going through today. This section, hardest corner on the track, having to change the brake bias, just to stop the car from over-rotating, make sure it doesn't go too deep, keep it nice and tight on the exit, and going to my favourite corner of the track, just after the 50-metre board, really attacking this, and we absolutely nailed that. You can see we're about half a tenth down going into the last corner, gaining all that time back, almost gained a tenth going through there, and going across the line, this is an 18.3, and I feel doing this within 30 minutes, I was pretty happy with that. And you can see this is what happens when you start to overdrive a little bit, pushing the limits. That's when it's time to take a bit of a break. But I would really encourage you, if you haven't tried the F2 cars, I think you would absolutely love it. And I may even be doing a league, spoiler alert, in this car in 2025. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Let me know if you have tried it, if you enjoyed it. And I will be doing some iRacing content. I'll be doing some content on some of the older F1 games coming up very, very soon this year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great Christmas, and I will see you very, very soon. Peace.